Hi, this is Simon Upstill and welcome to another tutorial for Apple Motion, and today I wanted to show you this effect that I'm calling squaring the circle. So it's another pretty intriguing combination of filters and effects, and I think you're going to like it. So let's take a look. Okay, for this project I'm going with 1920 1080, 24 frames a second, duration of 15 seconds. And the first thing I want to do is come over to the library, look for shapes, and look for diamond, and let's bring that in. Now you'll notice it's not quite long enough for our project, so let's come to the end of the timeline, mark out. No, it is long enough. So the first thing we want to do is set up the look of this diamond. So I'm going to turn on the outline. I'm going to set the fill opacity down to 20%, and I'm just going to reduce the grey value of this a little bit down to something like that. Then what I want to do is I want to just give it a little bit of a rotation while I remember. So come to the rotation, add parameter behavior ramp, and let's set the end value to 90. It's going to run around like that. So then let's add some filters to this. First of all, I want to come to stylize and indent. I want to set the ambient all the way down, the brightness down to 0.35, and the highlight sharpness to 18. So next I want to add some noise. So filters, stylize, add noise. We'll stick with white noise. Let's bump it up a bit to 0.35, but let's reduce the mix value down to 60. Now I want to take some color out of that. So filters, color, hue saturation, set the saturation down to -1. Then let's quickly add an unsharp mask, sharp and unsharp mask. Let's set the radius up to 32. Then I just want to give it a little bit of color. So I'm going to come to color and levels. I'm going to select blue, and I'm just going to increase the blue intensity just a bit like that. So then what we can do is we can take this diamond, turn it off, and we can make a particle system out of it. So object, make particles. I'm just going to move this over -240 and 120 on Y. Let's come over to the emitter. What I want is a birth rate of 20. Life, we need to make sure it's plenty long enough, so I'm going to go for 20. So let's come down to the opacity over life, open that up, click here to make a tag, click here to make a tag, set this one to 0, drag this all the way over to there, and set that first one to 0 as well. So then they'll fade in and fade out as well. So the other thing I want to do is add a drag effect to this. So behaviors, simulation, and drag. And I'm going to set the amount to 0.2. Then I'm going to take this emitter and I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm just going to change its position. So +240 and -120. And the difference with this emitter is I'm going to turn on additive blend. So then I'm going to take this group and I'm going to group it. So right click, group, and I'm going to turn on fixed resolution for this group and for this group as well. And this top group, I'm going to come to masks and keying and luma keyer. Just that default is absolutely fine. And then I'm going to come to distortion and sphere, and you can start to see how it's all taking shape now. So for that second emitter, the one where we set it to additive blend, I want to select this tag here, this opacity tag, and I want to reduce it down to maybe 50% or maybe 60%. And that's just going to tame the effect of that brightness there. Want a little bit of it, but not too much. Actually, let's go for 65. That's probably enough. Then what I want to do is I want to take this top group here and I want to rotate it. So let's add parameter behavior ramp, and let's set the end value to 180. And that's going to rotate the whole thing around like that. Starting to look quite nice. So then I think I want to add to this top group, color and levels, just crunch it a little bit like that. And then I'm going to take this group and I'm going to make a clone of it. So right click, make clone layer. And I want to add that ramp behavior to that clone. So I'm going to hold down the Option key and drag it onto the clone. I'm going to set the blend mode of this clone to add, and then I want to give it some color. So filters, color, and colorize. And that's kind of all right. And I'm going to add a Gaussian blur like so, and set this Gaussian blur amount to something like 128. So we get this nice coloured fringe like that. And then I'm going to duplicate this clone. So right click, duplicate, and I'm going to set the Gaussian blur amount up to 2048. And I'm going to change that colorize. So let's go for something like this. And then let's maybe just reduce the opacity of this down a bit like that. So now we've got this. Maybe reduce the level of the other clone just a little bit so it's not quite so intense, something like that. Okay, so let's close up that group. In fact, let's close everything up. Let's just grab a generator color solid, drop that in behind, make it black. And the other thing I think would be quite nice to do here is to do some very subtle particles. So let's make a new group at the top here. And let's come over to the library and let's come down to content and let's just have a search for dust. And which one do I want? I think I'll probably go with 05. Let's bring that into that group there. So let's make a object, make particles. Let's set the blend mode of this to add, and let's come into the emitter. What do we want? Let's come to the scale. Let's set that down to about 7, scale randomness about 20 maybe, and let's have a birth rate of about 5. Let's make the emitter a rectangle, random fill size of 1920, and let's set the speed down to 2, the speed randomness maybe 20. Maybe that's even too much for the birth rate. Let's go for 4. Just really want a very few particles here. One other thing I want to do, oh yes, angle randomness. Let's have 360 for the angle randomness. Teeny bit of spin randomness. Let's go for 30. Let's have a look at that. So particles there. Maybe a bit more speed randomness. Let's go for 30. Just want to drift around gently. Let's open up the opacity over life. Click here in the center to make a tag. Click at the end to make a tag. Set that one to be 0 opacity. This one to be 0 opacity. So they're just fading in and out gently like that. And the only other thing I want to do is I want to mask them off from the middle a little bit. So select the circle mask tool, draw out a mask around our central circle, invert it, and then feather it out quite a lot like that. And I just think those give it a little bit more sense of mystery, and I think I like that. So there you go, that's the effect. It's quite interesting, quite pretty, I think, quite unusual. So thanks very much indeed for watching, and I'll see you again soon.